Hello, and welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
This is the podcast about murders and so much more. We will talk about anything strange, anything that goes bump in the night, and pretty much anything that amuses us.
And on that note, we need to mention that this podcast is not safe for work or delicate ears, so do be discerning who you listen to it with.
We also want to let you know that you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram, so look for us there.
I am Shannon Lawrence. I am a writer, mom, wife, student, procrastinator, and you can find me at thewarriormuse.com.
My name is MB Partlow. I am a writer, an avid reader, an organizer extraordinaire, a mom to kids, cats, and a dog, and I call bullshit when I see it. Hello.
Shit, yeah.
When we don't have to introduce ourselves, we don't know
It just
what to
really
say.
throws us. Sorry.
We just jump right in.
Hi there.
My nose and jump right in.
Feet first.
I don't know where that came
That's why it took so long for our mouths to engage, because it was feet first. Jeez. All right.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so what have you been up to lately?
You know, just parenting and studenting. That's right.
That works.
Figuring out stuff for just all the stuff that they threw at me when my daughter got diagnosed with autism. It's just, all right, now you have to do all these things and bye. I'm gone now. That's how that worked.
Yeah.
I was like, so do we make our next appointment with the neuropsychologist? She goes, oh no, that was it. I just do the diagnosing and give you your recommendations, and then you're on your own. And I most certainly feel on my own.
Oh my God. So there's no follow-up? There's no...
Nope. So I had to meet with the next step was to basically go to the pediatrician and say I need referrals for these counseling things or these therapy things. And then I will say, as unhappy as I am with Kaiser, always, their mental health branch is called Beacon Health.
Yes.
And I have one representative there that I've worked with now. She's amazing. Like, she's the most helpful person I have dealt with in all of this, is our Beacon Health rep.
Nice.
So I requested her the second time. I was like,
Please let me talk to her.
Please get me her. And she's so nice.
Cool.
And then when I finally, she's on top of stuff, and I was just overwhelmed with it. And then I wrote to her and I was like, I'm not going to do this, so stop doing any work on this one. Because I'm not going to, basically there was 3 different kinds of therapy they recommended and all this stuff, and I'm like, it's too much for her.
You can't just leap into.
And so I was like, yeah, I don't think she'll like it. She's not gonna like talk therapy. I can tell you that right now. So, and she wrote back to me. This is what spurred my post. She wrote back to me. She said, you know what? I think that you are absolutely making the right decision for your family, and that doing too much for like this whole thing. And I was like, I'm so happy with you right now. So that's what I've been up to. You've been up to...
I had to... Speaking of medical stuff...
Right.
I had to call somebody. I can't even remember what it was for in the last week or so. And the woman on the phone said, and who's your insurance through? And it was one of those phone calls I made at like 7:30 in the morning. Why? My brain is not engaged. And my mind just went snap. And I went, fuck if I know. So Joe was like brushing his teeth. I go knock on the bathroom door. Who is our insurance with? Well, what insurance? I said medical. And I'm holding the phone. So he has to tell me the name of the company, and I repeat it. And I'm like, I am so sorry. The minute you asked me who it was with, my mind just said nope.
Yeah, I
made it. That is a piece of information you may not have access to.
Nope.
But yes, I was one of the lucky ones who got their first COVID shot at the clinic that was shut down for possibly improperly storing it. Then there was also a question, apparently somebody reported or somebody noticed that they had more appointments scheduled than they could physically handle in a day. And I'm like, well, no shit. Because they set appointment times.
Yeah.
And so I got there about 10 minutes before my appointment time, and there were 75 people ahead of me. And I was like, is this just today? Is this a glitch? What's going on? So obviously had no reaction to that shot, because who knows? Was it good? Was it not good? So yeah, I spent a lot of time on the phone calling people who took a very long time to get back to me. And then when they did, they said, well, we don't know yet. So then finally the health department said, if you got your first shot there, just start all over. But I was able to. I went through UC Health.
Okay.
And got in pretty quick. I called. Oh my God. So I get up Wednesday morning. The article is in the paper that you have to reschedule. So I canceled my second shot, rescheduled. And it just so happened the time of my shot fell in the middle of my work shift. So I'm like, I need to let the boss know. So I send him a text. And then I look at the clock and I'm like, I just texted my boss at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, shit.
And I am polite. At least I just said good morning. And he's like, well, good morning, MD. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize what time it was. And then I just went silent until like 9 o'clock. I said, okay, are you awake now? Can we talk? I need a favor. Jeez. Yeah. I know a lot of people do. I don't sleep with my phone even on the same floor of the house. Yeah. It's nowhere near me. So I don't, it's hard for me to remember that people sleep with their phones like in their hands. Or under their pillows.
Whereas I'm always the opposite, where I assume that they do, and then I'm paranoid because I've got my phone off. It's there because it's my alarm.
Oh, right.
And it works. So, but it's on Do Not Disturb, so nobody can call me unless it's an emergency. So, like the kids' schools can get through, and my mom can get through, and she just knows better than to wake me up.
Yes.
Before a certain time, I get a text at like 1. Are you awake? Yes. But I'm always like, because my thing will be texting somebody too late, of course, because my brain really wakes up at night. And then as soon as I'm alone, when the husband has gone to bed and the kids are at least settled in their rooms, I'm not going to say they went to bed, but that's when my brain's like, oh, you were supposed to do this and this and that. And, oh, this person wrote to you and you never responded. And blah, and blah. And then I just hit. And then, ugh.
See, and you can respond to me because there's no electronics near me that will wake me up. There is a dog that will wake me up. This morning, the dog sat next to the bed on my side and whimpered. So I thought, oh, she must have to pee. I get up. No, she wanted to be fed early. Oh, I was like, I don't fucking think so.
That is not how this works.
And someone, we aren't sure who, it was a cat or a dog. It wasn't Joe or myself, but someone threw up in our bed the other night.
Oh, that
was
was
like, what's this? That was delightful.
Well, that's how it wasn't. I think that Neffy vomited on our bed after Jeff was asleep, but before I came to bed. So I come to bed and I pulled the blanket over and I'm like, oh no! And so I had to wake him up because there was no way. I was like, I could try and just push this to the bottom and ignore this. It's not going to happen. So I had to take it off, and then because it was the freaking down quilt or whatever.
I've got to figure out how to wash the comforter. I haven't done that yet.
Ugh.
Wash the blankets, wash the sheets. Looked at the comforter and went, I could just buy a new one.
Right? Well, okay. So 3 days in a row, she threw up in our room, and that's not. She doesn't do that. We've never had her throw up in her room before.
Right.
And we let her in there because the kittens stress her out, so she can just come in there. But she tends to get those hairballs that build up and up and up, and then she stops eating or whatever. So I don't know if she was starting to get one. But yeah, 3 days in a row. So the first day I come in, she threw up on the sofa. And I was like, I don't even know how to clean this. But anyway, so I cleaned that up the next day. Luckily, I had an Afghan over it because it's the one in our bedroom. So I just keep an Afghan over it because I don't know what the hell else to do with the Afghans that my grandma made me. I can't. So I'm like, they're on the sofa. So anyway, that made it a little easier. But then she threw up on the down comforter. Ugh. And so then I took that off and put our summer weight quilt on there, so I had to sleep with the heated blanket
right now,
on. It was cold as hell the week that she did it.
Yep.
And then the next day, she threw up on the summer weight quilt. And I was like, that's it! So I actually, because I need the weight as well as the heat, right? And so I had to sleep with 2 bathrobes on me. I was not happy with her. I think people think I hate my cat. I love my cat, but I have 4 of them, but this one is a pain in the ass. She's my Siamese cat. She's a pain in the ass. She really is. Yeah. She's very spoiled. So that's proof right there that I don't hate her.
Nobody thinks you hate your cat.
At this point, well, because I edited the one that went out last time, and it was when Jeff and Gabriel were in Arkansas, and she was waking me up every morning.
Oh.
So they probably do think I hate her, because I really did hate her that day. I really did.
I understand that.
But no, she's a spoiled cat. She's even driving boy child crazy, because she does it, like, his room is the big one. That's her room. And he likes to keep his door closed. And so she's going to scratch at it to get in. She's going to scratch it to get out. And we all over the house can hear it when she's scratching to get in.
So why hasn't Jeff put in a cat door?
We've talked about it, yeah. But then that means all the cats will go into his room.
We did that in Lucy's bedroom door, because the cats would sit outside her bedroom and scratch at the door and meow.
Yeah.
And it would keep us up, so...
The problem is, if more than one of them, if the ones that fight are in his room, then he's going to get woken up by them fighting.
True.
So, we go back and forth. But I think at this point, he'd rather have the cat door and just deal with it if they fight, because at least that would happen less often than Neffy.
Yes.
Who's currently sleeping down in the easy chair with her butt up all high because she settled weird, and then we just went, all right, and then went to sleep.
Yep. So, have you read anything good lately?
I read Baby Teeth.
Oh,
now, I don't know how to say her name, whether it's Zoe or Zoe Stage, but it's Zoje and then Stage. And I know she's, Swedish, and so the J is a Y. I just don't know if it's like Zoe or what. But anyway, so I'm sure I butchered the hell out of her name is what I'm saying right now. It was really good. It was disturbing in that it's basically a mother and her nonverbal child at war.
Competing for the father. Of age or because of...
Nonverbal not because of age. She's more than old enough. I think she's, like a second grader or something like that. And she's just never spoken. And they don't know why. But you go back and forth between the mom's head and her head.
Ooh.
And she's waging war. Well, all of a sudden in this book, it's been going on for years, right? And they just kind of have this collision of personalities. And the dad, first of all, he pissed me off because he doesn't believe the mom about her behavior. Like, the little girl does all sorts of things to mess with her mom. And he just thinks that she's perfect. And I'm like, so you just think that your wife is an idiot and wants to make up lies about your child. Okay, you're a douche. Anyway, he's at work all day. Mm-hmm. And I don't think this woman was ever meant to be a mom, though. That's the other issue. She should have never become a mom. She doesn't want to. She wants out of the house. He doesn't give her breaks. He doesn't, So, obviously, there's part of me that very much identified with this, because I chose to be a stay-at-home mom because of stuff, like a history, both for myself and my mother, that said, if I have children, I have to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. They're not going to a daycare. They're not going to be under someone else's care. But I was never meant to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm not going to say I wasn't meant to be a mom. I'm not psychotic like this woman. But yeah, so I had a lot of adaptation problems because most of my value was in A, looks, B, how I worked, right? Yeah. Like, I'm a hard worker. That was a large part of my value, and both those went... And then I was stuck at home, and he was traveling all the time. So he was very good about, when he was here, saying, like, every Saturday morning, he was like, go have breakfast somewhere, go do whatever. So I could even pump ahead of time when there was a nursling. Yeah. And I would go during that time to Mimi's, because they had a fireplace, and I would get seated by the fireplace, and I would have breakfast there, because they served breakfast till like noon, but I would get there at 10 a.m. or whatever and just have a nice breakfast and sit there and read. He was very good about getting me out when he could, but he was also traveling all the time when they were little. So
that sucks.
But suddenly the little girl starts talking just to the mom. See, she won't talk to the dad.
Oh.
But she's not talking as herself. She's gone and done all this research, and she's telling her mom she's a witch and she's going to murder her mom. And the thing is, she really is plotting her mother's murder. So then she starts doing things. father has to finally come around when shit gets bad. But it just escalates and escalates and escalates in this book.
Because for a while, everybody was talking about this book.
Yeah.
And how creepy it was. So it's been on my list. And then when I saw you had it, I'm like, oh, maybe she'll let me borrow it.
I think, yeah, it's over here.
Yeah.
I think if you've been a stay-at-home mom at all, it's going to be kind of doubly, the problem is that one moment I could identify with her, and the next moment I was like, no, bitch. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
okay.
It was really good. It's intense, and it's twisted.
I like that. I could appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have a book I haven't finished yet, so I'm hoping to talk about it next time. That reading it gives me a very flavor of Cabin in the Woods.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I was like, what? I'm like, what? I was like, this had to be very influenced by that.
Okay.
So, but I won't talk about that till next, because I haven't finished it.
So you're going to talk about a book this week?
Oh, yes, I did read.
Okay.
I do have other books I did read. I read Homicide in Hardcover by Kate Carlisle, and it is a cozy mystery. And it was one of those books you read that you come out of it and you go, I really feel like I learned something. In a good way. The main character is a woman who restores books, like really old manuscripts, like repairs them.
Yeah. And
puts them back together. And there's so much to it that I had absolutely no idea. All the stuff that goes into it. So there's a big, it's not an art opening, but it's a big gala. And this rare manuscript is supposed to be on display, but a week before there's like a small gathering, like a preview, and the man who is working on this manuscript, who is this girl's mentor, is found dead in the basement. So that's the whole mystery that's all. But so that was kind of good. I don't know that I'll read more in the series. Not that she wasn't a good writer, she was, or she is, and it really did keep me engaged, but like, I don't know how much I want to read in that world. Gotcha. How much can you say about book restoration that I want to keep reading? She's got a quirky family. Her parents have a winery. They live in a commune. A very rich commune.
Okay.
This is not a smelly hippie commune. This is a rich winery commune.
It does not smell of patchouli?
No. It probably smells of, I don't know, what's a fancy... Chanel.
Shalimar or whatever.
Chanel number 5. But then I also read, there's this series of books by a writer whose name is J.D. Kirk. And this is the second one in the series. It's called Thicker Than Water. And this is like a police procedural. Okay. But it's set in the Highlands of Scotland.
Oh,
I just want to go there when I'm reading it. So my sister-in-law sent me she told me about it, and I think I bought the first book, and she sent me the next 3 books. There are like 17 books in this series. And her mom is reading them, and she's got everybody in Lake Wales, Florida is reading them. Yeah, she sent me those, and it was really good. It's a very nice balance of... So the police officer who's the main investigator, he's not so enigmatic that you have no idea what his motivation is, and he's not so damaged you can't relate to him. I mean, yes, he has issues, but sometimes they're just
interesting if they have some issues.
Yes,
but not so many that you're like, ugh, get over it already.
Yes, and the people around him are very interesting characters. It was nice to see how they developed from the first book to the second. So I really am enjoying that series. And I'm like, I love a series where there's a ton of books to read.
Yeah, and then you can just devour them as you go.
Yes.
The Scottish thing reminds me of my TV show that I watched this week. I could have sworn it had a different name on there. But anyway, I watched it on Hulu, and it's Gordon, Gino, and Fred's Road Trip. So it's Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon,
Gino, and Fred's Road Trip. And so they all come to America. Now, one of them, Gino, is Italian. And Fred is French. And
because that's a traditional French name.
Right? Fred. And they're all chefs, right?
Right.
So Gordon Ramsay takes them because he lives most of the year in LA, actually.
Right.
And so he takes them on a trip, and they hit LA, they hit Vegas, because they have to. Ramsay has I think several restaurants, but
yeah,
there. And it's funny because they're old friends, so they're totally immature half the time. They're traveling in this RV, and it's actually really funny. And it's just one little road trip so far, so it's a couple long episodes. So, kind of like a mini series almost. Oh. Yeah, so it was funny. But just watching them, so they're going and he's introducing him to these different kinds of food. So he takes him to Vegas and he gets like a $700 burger that's there because it's Wagyu beef and it's aged and probably 100-year balsamic vinegar and
truffles.
Blah, blah. Yes, absolutely.
And it's not lettuce, it's $100 bill.
Yeah.
On the hamburger.
That's right. Pretty much. And so they all try it, and they're like, yeah, this is good, but $700 for a burger,
Right?
And then, but they go do barbecue in Texas.
Oh, this sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. It's a quick,
watch this.
Pretty quick watch, but I had a lot of fun. But anyway, I had no idea that Ramsay was Scottish. Because he says, like in the intro, it's all, what happened when you take a Scotsman, Frenchman, and an Italian, and go, and I'm like, what? And he's wearing a kilt in the intro. And I'm like, excuse me, that's a super British accent you have. Well, his mom's in one of the episodes, total brogue. And I was like, oh, okay, I gotcha. So that just made me think of that. Because I was like... Because I turned to Jeff and I went, he is not Scottish. That's not a Scottish accent. I love a Scottish accent. I would know.
Right? It would make him that much more likable.
Right?
Scottish accent.
Oh, it's funny. The two guys throw back at him at one point. They're all,
I bet.
They take turns cooking. And then they start yelling at him and mocking him like they're on Hell's Kitchen.
I have to watch this.
It's funny.
I might have to watch this
And there's
tonight.
great food. Yes. Yeah.
Ooh.
I have to.
Have you seen Thunder Force yet?
Yes, with Melissa McCarthy and oh my god, Jason Bateman and the woman who was in Ma, Octavia Butler.
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes. Spencer. Octavia Butler is the author. Octavia Spencer is
right.
the actress. Sorry, but I knew it was Octavia.
Which did this movie seem a little lowbrow for her to you?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, it threw me. Like, I couldn't fit her into that part because I see her as more of a... Okay. Sorry, Melissa McCarthy. I see her as more of a real actress than a cheesy Melissa McCarthy.
Well, here's the thing. I think... So, let's take... I'm going to go back and take an older example. Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Can act.
Yeah.
I believe Adam Sandler has demonstrated that he can act.
Robin Williams,
not quite as much, but those two particularly did all those kind of dumbass comedies.
Did you see Robin Williams' last movies?
I don't know. Well, yeah, some of those were pretty. Oh, with the one in the RV.
There's the RV, there's the Photoshop one, there's the one where his son auto-erotically asphyxiates himself.
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, yeah.
But these are... but those two particularly had the comedies.
Yeah.
That would come out, and everybody in the free world, it appeared, went and saw them. And... Because Melissa McCarthy can act.
Yeah.
But they keep putting her in this kind of dumb role. This kind of...
Yeah, and that was it. Like Kevin James.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to be the big girl with a heart of gold.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you can act. You can go... Don't turn into Diane Keaton, who plays Diane Keaton in every movie now.
Every time. Yeah, but I did see it, and the whole crab claws on Jason Bateman, especially in the first thing where he clicks them and moves sideways, and I was just like, oh man.
And eating the raw chicken.
Yes.
Did you hear about that? How they did it?
No.
It was pears.
I wondered because it looked juicy, and I could see that it was like a different texture than chicken, I was like...
Apparently it was so realistic looking that it grossed him out on set.
I bet.
Because I can't even imagine eating something that looks like raw chicken.
Yeah.
And I sat there looking at that going, I know it's not raw chicken, but it's close enough that you go, ugh.
Yeah, it's because she's eating it and she's just like talking with her mouth full and she's just shoving it in there. It sounds all juicy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did watch that.
And I think they both wore padded suits.
What do you mean?
They both wore padded suits to make them look bigger.
Oh.
Because I saw some outtakes and they had these bodysuits on and it was like, whoa. It was silly but fun.
Yes. Yeah. I watched something more serious this week too. Well, here's the thing. It wasn't even this week, right? This is the one that I realized I had never talked about and I wanted to mention. It was A Promising Young Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because neither of us... If I already talked about it, folks, I'm sorry. But it's really good. It's Margot Robbie was one of the producers. Which was awesome.
And who's in it?
I don't know, some chick. Some dude.
What?
Some people.
What's it about?
I don't remember anybody's name. Oh, Schmidt from New Girl is in it.
Oh.
He's terrible. But
he
anyway,
plays a terrible person, or
he
his acting
plays
is
a terrible
okay.
person. But so, A Promising Young Woman, in case anybody's missing that reference, when I'm not even going to say his name, but when what was he, a swimmer?
Yeah.
The boy raped a girl, and the judge didn't want to unduly punish him and ruin his life because he was such a promising young man. So I did look it up, and that was a reference to that because that was what popped in my head.
But assaulting an unconscious woman,
absolutely,
that's promising.
So you have this woman, and she is going out, and she's acting like she's super inebriated at bars, and she's seeing who picks her up, and basically there's always a guy, who tries to take advantage. He's like, oh, let me get you somewhere safe, and that somewhere safe ends up being his place, oddly, and then of course she gives them, like, at one point I turned to Jeff and I was like, she gives them plenty of space to do the right thing.
Okay.
She gives them time to realize they're doing the wrong thing. And they don't.
Now, if they lived nearby, they could take her to their house and get her coffee and give her something to eat and call her an Uber. But yeah, I'm taking it. They're not doing that.
No. And so she gives them the rope to hang themselves, basically. Now, I thought she was going to be like brutalizing them because that's kind of what it looked like in the commercials. But she doesn't. I mean, she's teaching them a lesson. And so suddenly she's dead sober and they're like, what the hell's going on? And so she's trying to dissuade them from doing this in the future and actually then raping a woman. And then, but there's a background to it, and I'm not going to go too much into it. Okay. And she ends up having an opportunity with that background to do something about what spawned all of this in the beginning. Oh. Now, yeah, it's a rough movie. I'm not going to pretend it has a happy ending. It does and it doesn't. So there you go.
Is it on demand or
Redbox?
Okay.
It's not on anything as far as I know. It might be on demand still.
Okay.
Because it did come out early on Amazon as one of those ones you could buy early, but then it came out on Redbox. So that's out.
Okay.
But it's good. It's intense. It's not super fast paced until, but it's good. Recommend.
Have you eaten at any... Okay, before we jump into... I'm just going to ask. Have you eaten any place good?
We tried. Oh my gosh. I've tried twice now. We tried to go to Happy Belly Tacos. It's closed. So I go to their Facebook page and they say, yeah, we decided to just switch to catering because of the current climate, and not being able to get enough business to stay.
Fair.
And they had 2 locations and they shut them both down.
Wow.
And I was seeing them being recommended all the freaking time. So the only thing I ever had there was a Choco Taco because we ate at Jake and Telly's Greek across the street, right. Greek Taverna. And then we walked across the street to there just to check it out. And we had already eaten, so we weren't hungry. But the tacos sounded really good. Like it was one of those types of places that has all the neat specialty tacos. Yes. Yeah, so I was sad about that. So then we tried to go somewhere else, and it was closed for the day early, even though it said had later hours and blah, blah, blah. And that was how we ended up at Jose Muldoon's, which I talked about last time. So now I tried to go and try this new sandwich place called Colonel Mustard Sandwich Emporium. Yeah, they close at 3. So we learned that one.
Oh.
And I was like, because each time, it's not like we get to go out that often.
I'm not going to write that down because
I know, because I didn't go. So I want to go there.
So we went to Grand Euros. It's at Palmer Park and Academy.
Okay.
There's that
I
big,
haven't heard of it.
There's that big plaza that used to have an Albertsons and Long's Drug at Palmer Park and Academy. Well, in that little strip toward Palmer Park is Grand Euros. It's been there forever. In fact, it has been there for 22 years.
Oh, wow.
I have been driving by this place for 22 years. And finally, my boss said, you've got to check this place out. So I said, okay. So one day we went in. It's like this woman. It's like a one-woman show. She never stops moving. And there isn't dine-in right now. But she's just moving. It was a ton of food. We got Euro salads. They were so good. It was so well balanced. It was huge. It wasn't very expensive. The pita bread,
yeah,
nice pita bread warmed on a grill. I was like, what? I looked at Joe. I was like, why have we never come in here? And he was like, I don't know.
There's like a billion places I pass by that I'm like, someday I should check that out. Like I heard of there's a Cuban restaurant on South Academy, and it's in where it used to be. Oh my God, Chi-Chi's.
Yes, it moved there. That's the one we went to.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it moved. It's called.
Oh, okay. Nope.
Havana Grill.
Yes. And so I had to go there to do blood tests and stuff, medical tests for life insurance. By the way, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Uh-oh.
So we have these stories about people who con the life insurance, who take out life insurance on someone and they don't even know it. And I will say, so we had the life insurance we had last time. I don't remember having to sign off on it. Of course, I knew my husband was getting it.
Right.
But I will say with that insurance, we learned the hard way through a car accident that you get what you pay for with insurance. So we switched back to State Farm because it's worth us paying more, we've learned.
Yes.
Anyway, so we're switching everything over to them, and we had life insurance and car insurance and home insurance through this other company. Trying to get life
insurance is like,
my God, the hoops.
You might as well ask him for a little bone marrow.
Yes. I'm like, there's no way he could con it, but we could have with the old company, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So that was interesting to note. I'm like, unless you go with these little piddly insurance companies, then no freaking way. Because I had to do medical tests. I had to do a phone interview. I had to do, which by the way, that's such a pleasure because they go over everything wrong with you basically.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to be reminded of this and discuss it with people and have you ask weird random questions about it. Yeah. Okay. I'm broken. I get it. You get it. Let's move on. But yeah, so we had to fill out the whole application at the beginning, and then we had to do the phone interview, which was like half an hour, and then I had to go in and get blood testing and get weighed and do a urine test. And
see, I'm always afraid they're going to ask me, have you ever blank? And I'm going to say no, and they're going to get my medical records and go, well, look at what a liar she is. And I'm like, I don't fucking remember. If it didn't happen this morning, I don't remember.
I tried to leave certain things off because I'm going off, say, the medications I'm on. So I didn't want to mention them. And then I was like, well, I got to mention this one now. And then they asked me why. And then I allowed to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn it.
All right. Shall I leap into...
Do it.
All right. So this is mayhem and mystery.
All right.
Well, there may be a monster involved, but nobody fucking knows. That's why it's a mystery. So this is about the Circleville Letters. So I looked at Mental Floss. I looked at the Unsolved Mysteries Wiki. Of course I looked at Wikipedia. I just kind of do now. And I found out so many rabbit holes I could have gone down. But I only went down one. So yes, I'm going to include it. So this all takes place in Circleville, Ohio, which is a small town. Right now, the most current, well, not 2020, but 2010 census, it was about 14,000 people. So very much small town. It's in the center, almost the center of Ohio. It's like 25 miles south of Columbus. It happens to be the county seat of Pickaway County.
Pickaway.
So this is not directly related to... the letters, but I had to include it when I found this. In March of 1967, so there are no axes involved.
Fine.
Phyllis Holbrook filed for divorce from her husband of 20 years. His name was Lee. He was a man with a drinking problem and a very bad temper. So
that's going to be a trend today. With mine too.
Yes. So March, she files for divorce. In April, he walks into Bingman's drugstore, where his wife is employed, with a smoking wooden crate. He thumps it down on the counter and claims it's a bomb. In fact, it was. It was full of fucking dynamite.
Holy shit. How do you get dynamite?
It was 1967. I don't know. Maybe it was easier to get.
It was at the other corner store.
Probably. So he says it's a bomb. So the owner, who is also a pharmacist, Charles Schreiber, grabbed the box and tried to run for the door, but Holbrook wouldn't let him go. Holbrook engages him. Another pharmacist, Ted Forster, tries to help, but the crate of dynamite detonated. It killed Holbrook, 5 of the store employees, and injured 30 others. The explosion and resulting fire destroyed the drugstore and several surrounding buildings because it ruptured a gas line in downtown Circleville. Phyllis, who is the one he was mad at, was not at the drugstore because that morning he had been kicked out of the house. He had tracked her down and attacked her earlier in the day. So she was at the police station when she heard and felt the explosion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what was remarkable, and this kind of plays into what happens later. What's remarkable is the way the town rallied. Because citizens came out of their homes and out of their businesses, and they helped because they had a 12-man fire department. People were just picking up hoses and fighting the fire. People were helping recover bodies, evacuate the nearby buildings. Somebody would pull up in a car and they would just chuck somebody injured in the car and say, take him to the hospital, go. So the whole town pulls together for this. On the 50th anniversary of the explosion, the daughter of one of the pharmacists, Joni, it was Forster, not Foster, Forster, decided she wanted to find some answers. So she went back, and there were still a ton of survivors. There were a lot of people who were living in the town at that time, or the children of the people who were involved. And she talked to everybody. Exactly 0 people believe Phyllis did anything to incite this. Because there was a question, was Phyllis having an affair? Was Phyllis doing this? Remember, Phyllis didn't blow up the fucking building. It was the nut job husband.
Yeah, but we know how that works.
Yeah.
It's her fault. She drove him to it.
And Larry Schreiber, whose father owned Bigman's, opened Schreiber Family Pharmacy in Circleville in 1989, and he sells her book and donates all the profits to Haven House, which is a domestic violence center.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of a neat little roundup. So, 10 years later, scarcely 10 years later, it's summer of 1976. It's the bicentennial. I want to say it's the bicentennial. I want to be adamant about this. It's 1976.
It's very important.
So there's a woman named Mary Gillespie who lives in Circleville.
I am related to Gillespie's.
In Circleville?
Nope.
So
I don't know.
Maybe. She receives a letter, and it's postmarked Columbus. There's no return address, and there's no signature on this letter. But it claims to know she's having an affair with the school superintendent, Gordon Massey, warns her to stop, says, we know where you live, and it threatens her to, we know you have children. And so she just kind of is like, what the fuck, and ignores it. I mean, it's disturbing, but she's like, maybe if this is a fluke and it'll go away.
Right. Most people don't assume somebody's actually coming after them.
So then her husband, Ron, starts receiving letters with demands that he go to the school board with this info or he'd be killed. So Mary assures Ron it's not true, that she's not having an affair with the school superintendent, and they decide they're going to ignore the letters. Then they get more threats, saying if Mary doesn't end the affair, it would be announced on billboards and CB radio. And I'm like, you have to remember, in 76, CB radios were pretty popular.
Yeah. We had a CB radio in our 76 Chevy Blazer when we first got together. Then somebody stole it.
It just cracks me up. That was, that would be like posting it on Facebook or Instagram now.
Yeah.
So, although how they thought they were going to keep their anonymity when people can hear your voice, who knows? Obviously, this was not a well thought out.
Because they had a call sign.
Anyway, so at this point, I'm reading about this and I'm like,
early trolls.
Yeah, early trolls. I'm thinking, does she ever go to Gordon Massey and go, dude, I'm getting these threatening letters. Are you? That's my thought, because if we got a letter saying, MB, we know you're having an affair with, pick a name.
Right. Don't throw out a random name. That's bad.
No,
Don't do that.
I'm not going to. I was trying to think of somebody outrageous, but I would go to that person.
Stephen King.
Yeah, Stephen King. I'd be like, dear Stephen, you don't know me, but I'm getting these really freaky letters. Are you getting them too?
Communication is key.
Yes, communication. Thank you. So they finally tell Ron's sister and brother-in-law. So this is Karen and Paul Freshour about the harassment. And Mary says she thinks she has a suspicion who's writing these letters. She thinks it's David Longberry, who's a bus driver who'd once made a pass at her that she'd rejected. So what they decide is Paul's going to write a letter to Longberry saying, we know what you're doing, stop with the threats. So he did that, and the letters did stop for a little while. Then signs began to appear around town proclaiming that Massey, the school superintendent, was involved with Tracy, who is the Gillespie's 12-year-old daughter.
Oh.
He is not. There is not even a question. That was just, who does that? Yeah. Anyway, Ron would get up early in the morning and drive around town and remove the signs so his daughter didn't see him.
Oh, good.
But still, to have to do that, because that's just above, that would make me want to hunt them down and kill them.
Yep.
You screw with me all you want. You fuck with my children and you're dead.
And you know how easy it is for somebody else's parents or some other kid to see she was 12?
Yeah.
So middle school.
Uh-huh.
And have her get ragged about that at school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So on August 19th of 1977, so this has been going on for over a year, Ron is home and he gets a phone call stating he's being watched and that the caller knew what Ron's truck looked like. So apparently Ron said he recognized the voice and he was going to go confront the person, and he left the house and apparently took a gun with him. So Ron ended up, like a very short time later, Ron ended up dead. His truck wrapped around a tree, and his gun had been fired one time.
Oh.
But they never found any bullet casings. They don't know who he fired at or what he fired at. Did it go off accidentally when the car crashed?
That would be really tricky.
And
how does one have a gun go off? I mean, there's a trigger.
Right. The police decided that this was an accident because his blood alcohol content was very high. But everybody who knew him at the time said that was very unusual. He was not a big drinker. I saw the word teetotaler. I'm not sure because that was only in one place, and most of them just said he wasn't a big drinker. I mean, yeah, he had a beer now and then, but
yeah, if I were to get into a drunk driving incident, that would be strange.
That would be extremely strange.
But I have a glass of wine or a beer every little once in a while.
Yeah.
In a blue moon.
His family didn't agree, but the police said there was no evidence to the contrary.
Okay.
So
were his brakes? Did they check his brakes?
One would hope. It didn't say. That would have been one of my questions. Did you check his brakes? Did you do this? Did you do that? Then letters began arriving at other homes in and around Circleville. And they asserted that the county sheriff, Dwight Radcliffe, was covering up the fact that Mary and Gordon Massey had killed Ron to cover up their affair.
Alrighty.
Yeah, it just boggles the mind. So at some point after Ron's death, Mary admitted that she did have an affair with Gordon, but claimed it happened after the letters started coming, not before.
What?
I don't buy that.
Gosh,
hello, sir, nice to meet you. Since people already think we're having an affair.
Let's do it.
Let's just take our clothes off.
Stupid.
Right? I'm like, hello, stranger. I don't know. I think, given that she eventually admitted that something had been going on, I think it must have been going on before the letters.
Of course. I mean, I'll admit, if I get blamed for something, then I'm more likely to do that thing. But I guess if somebody sent me a letter right now saying I was having an affair, I wouldn't run out and jump on anybody.
Crimes things that involve taking your clothes off, I'm not.
That's a lot of work.
That's more energy.
I did once shoplift after a guard came up and harassed me and told me he knew I was shoplifting when I was doing no such thing. I had a job and I was buying something. And then I was like, all right, fuck you then. Because he said, I've got your picture up in the office now and you can never come in here again. And I was like, all right, well then I'm going to earn it. So then I walked out with like incense and nail polish up my sleeves because I was like, fuck you.
Don't mess with Shannon.
But it wasn't an affair.
It didn't involve taking your pants off.
It didn't. It just involved me putting some things up my sleeves and walking out of a store.
Okay, so I'm like, where was I? Okay, so 1982. We go ahead a few more years. Paul and Karen Freshour. So Karen is Ron's sister. Paul and Karen Freshour go through a messy divorce, which results in him getting the house and custody of the kids. Which I think, I'm not certain about this, but I think in 1982 that was still fairly unusual for the dad to... Yeah. It was apparently a contentious divorce.
Hell, it's fairly unusual now.
Yeah. So Karen moves into a trailer on Mary Gillespie's property. And she later tells Mary that she suspects Paul is the letter writer. But when she's fighting for custody, it never came up. That just seems very weird to me. If you want to discredit your spouse and you think they did something illegal, would you not bring that up when you were trying to get custody of your children?
It depends, because I think it can hurt your case if you're claiming something and have absolutely nothing to back it up. Then it just looks like you're being a dick.
So then on February 7th, 1983, Mary, who's a school bus driver, she has finished one route and she goes back. She's headed to elementary school for a pickup. And on her route, she spots a homemade sign that makes her stop the bus. It is about her daughter again. It's an obscene remark about her daughter, Tracy. So she's no longer 12. She's got to be like 17. Anyway, she's got to be, I can't math on the fly.
She's an older teenager.
Yes. So she stops the bus, gets it, and it's an empty bus. There aren't any kids on it at this point. She stops it, and she picks up the sign in this weird homemade little post it's attached to, and just kind of picks the whole thing up and puts it in the bus. And goes on about her day. That night, when she has time to inspect it more closely, she finds a small container in the post containing a .25 caliber handgun.
What the hell?
It had been rigged so that if you tore the sign off the post, the gun would go off.
Yeah, but it didn't work.
That seems janky as all hell to me. Just, how do you even know that's going to work? But it was rigged to go off. So the police examined the gun, which had part of the serial number filed off, but they were still able to trace it. Guess who they traced it to? Paul? Her ex-husband, Paul. He was investigated and brought to trial, all the time protesting his innocence, but nobody could figure out a motive. And matter of fact, that's the whole thing here. There's never a clear motive for anybody. Police learned that a co-worker had sold Freshour the gun, and employment records showed he had taken the day off. The day that the sign in the booby trap was discovered. Several sources said he had an alibi for that day. For that time, it was discovered at like noon. But none of them gave any hint of what that alibi was.
Well, and it was discovered at noon.
Right.
Yeah.
So it could have been, it had to have been placed there earlier.
Right.
During the trial, handwriting experts said his handwriting was a match for 391 of the letters and 103 of the postcards sent. So in total, over 1,000 pieces of mail had been sent by the Circleville
Or there were
writer.
multiple.
Yes. Some claimed political corruption. Some contained arsenic. It was later called into question whether the handwriting test was properly administered by the police.
And I think handwriting tests can be super iffy even now, too.
Well, and it's really weird handwriting because it's this, and I will post photos of some of these letters because I found it difficult to read. It's these weird big block letters, and they believed that it was written that way to disguise the handwriting, which would make sense. So I'm like, I could probably convincingly make my handwriting look like that. So he was found guilty of attempted murder in 1983. He was never charged with anything related to the letters, although some of the letters were admitted as evidence against him. While he was in prison, sometimes while he was in solitary confinement, letters were still being received by people in Circleville. And as a matter of fact, when the parole board refused him an early release, he got one.
Oh, the parole...
Ron in jail got a letter.
Okay.
So, he was paroled in 1994 and continued to claim he had nothing to do with the letters. So there was a lead from the day that Mary found the sign that the police never followed up on. It involved a car, which was a yellow El Camino.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know if all of our listeners know what an El Camino looks like. Google it. It's not an attractive vehicle.
I used to love them because I loved the Volkswagen thing too. I had a thing for weird vehicles.
Okay.
So yeah, El Caminos and Volkswagen things.
They're a distinctive look.
They're rancheros and El Caminos.
Yes, and it was yellow.
Yeah.
So anyway, a yellow so this fairly distinctive car is seen, and a man who looked nothing like Fresh Hour were in the vicinity. Another bus driver had seen this car and this guy parked there where the sign was found. Mm-hmm. But the police never followed it up. And it turns out, that Karen, Ron's ex-wife, not Ron. Paul, thank you. I'm looking back up going, wait. Paul's ex-wife and Ron's sister, at this point, has a boyfriend who does match the description of the guy seen standing on the corner. And a family member does have a yellow El Camino. How many El Caminos? And at this time, the town is like a population of like 11,000. How many fucking yellow Caminos do you think people have?
Yeah.
There can't be that many.
No.
The letters dried up and stopped being delivered. Nobody's gotten any since the early 1990s. And what's really funny is when Unsolved Mysteries, they filmed a story about this. Mm-hmm. While filming the story, they received a postcard, apparently from the letter writer, and it read, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. Do nothing to hurt Sheriff Radcliffe. If you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay. The Circleville writer."
El Sickos.
Yeah, and the punctuation is colons.
Oh.
Forget Circleville, Ohio, : do nothing to hurt Sheriff Radcliffe, : if you go to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay, : the
Yuck.
Circleville writer. So they're abusing the English language.
That hurts my delicate sensibilities.
So, to this day, nobody can say for sure who wrote the letters. There was an investigative reporter named Martin Yank who contends that there were actually 3 letter writers. He said one is the son of the superintendent that Mary had the affair with, mm-hmm. which I can kind of see that one. Second is the co-worker who was infatuated with Mary that she shunned. Mm-hmm. And third is the ex-wife who was Ron's sister. But I don't understand why she would threaten her brother. She seemed to have a good relationship with her brother and his wife. I mean, she moved onto their property after she got divorced. I don't know why she would make these threats.
For fun?
Funsies, maybe. So it's just one of those bizarre things. And anybody who, apparently, people who lived in this area, because I went down the Reddit rabbit hole a little bit, and there's so many people. The town is also known for, they have this big water tower that's shaped and painted like a pumpkin. Mm-hmm. So they have a big pumpkin festival, and they have the Circleville Letters. That is what the town is.
I mean, it's so easy though. If in a small town, word would have gotten out about letters at some point. And it's so easy for anybody to be like, ooh, I can take advantage of this. There's somebody doing these letters, so I'm going to send it to a person I'm mad at.
Yep.
And they'll think it's whoever this purpose.
And they were all postmarked Columbus, but that was only 25 miles away. I'm assuming people went there fairly regularly.
I could postmark something from Denver or Pueblo on the regular and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's not a good clear, and it's really sad that the one guy died.
Yeah.
Ran out of the house. I mean, maybe he had just reached the end of his rope. But yeah, the Circleville Letters, and nobody has ever come forward. The one guy claimed he was innocent till the day he died, and nobody has ever come forward and said, yes, I wrote all of them, or I wrote some of them. And they do speculate that if he, and some people firmly believe it was Ron. No, it was Paul. Sorry, I'm like, why can't I keep them apart? Paul Freshour. A lot of people assume because he went to jail that he did it.
Yeah.
And that a family member sent him the one while he was in jail and kept it going so it would look like he was innocent.
Could be, yeah.
So
interesting.
What do you have for us this week?
So I'm doing a 2-part. So this will be continued on next week's episode. But the funny thing is, so this first one is going to be true crime related, but the people most likely to ping on the name that I'm going to read are going to be paranormal fans. But then, and then as soon as I say what city this is set in, then everybody's going to know what it is.
Everybody will go ding, 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 ding.
That's right. So I'm covering the DeFeo family murders. Mm-hmm. So I just heard there's some ears pinging right now. Ping, 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 DeFeo. Sources, AmityvilleMurders.com. All that's interesting, Wikipedia, and the New York Post. So, did y'all hear that?
Ping, ping,
ping. In 1965, the DeFeo family moved into a home on 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York. Now, this was Long Island-ish. It was upper crust. Ronald and Louise DeFeo had 5 kids. Ronald Jr., Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew. Ronald DeFeo Jr. went by the name Butch, and that's what I'm going to call him through the duration of this, just to simplify things.
We have a Butch in my step family.
I don't think it's uncommon.
No.
I don't have any, but...
Yeah. Especially in that era.
Yeah. Louise had wanted to model, and she'd hung out with even Mel Torme. She'd had kind of a social life. Her family, yeah, they were well off. Her father actually funded, I think, quite a bit of their life. It was questioned how Ronald DeFeo could even afford this house, because this was a pricey area. And it's thought that, good old daddy-in-law helped do that. On the evening of November 13th, 1974, so just under a year after they moved in there, no, many years later. Shut up. Butch, who was 23 years old, ran into Henry's bar and yelled that his parents had been shot. It was like, I need help. I think my parents have been shot. A party formed and they followed him to his house, and it was only like a block away. Inside, they found the entire family dead, all shot with a .35 caliber rifle. They were all in their beds, indicating that they'd been asleep when they were murdered. Now, bear in mind that he ran into this bar at 6:30 p.m. on November 13th. So evidence...
Were they freshly dead?
We'll get there. Evidence indicates that the mom, Louise, and 13-year-old Allison had been awake when they were shot.
Oh.
Everybody else appears to have been asleep, but I read a bunch of stuff. There's a conspiracy site. There's all sorts of things where they think they were just forced to lie in their stomachs so that they could be shot, yada, yada, yada. It would later be discovered that they had been killed at around 3 a.m. That's the estimate. There's no hard... Yeah. More than 15 hours before DeFeo busted into the bar.
Okay.
And he lived in the house, for the record. Oddly, the entire family was found on their stomachs, having been shot in the back, twice for the parents, one time for each of the kids. Now, this being on their stomachs thing, I mentioned it twice because it's brought up a lot, because it's very odd. How did one person move through a house and shoot 6 people without them waking up.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Butch claimed first that a hitman named Louis Fellini might have done it. So police whisk him away to the Suffolk County station because they think that maybe he needs to be protected from this Fellini character. But the story he told, quickly they started seeing inconsistencies in his story. And as more evidence comes in, they realize it couldn't be Fellini. They actually looked into it, and Fellini had an alibi. He was somewhere completely different, like nowhere near there. So confronted with that and with his inconsistencies, the next day, Butch confesses to killing his family. And he tells them where they can find the evidence, which consists he threw the weapon into the water, and he had put his bloody clothes somewhere, and they were able to get those. After slaughtering his entire family in the middle of the night, he took a shower.
As one does.
Disposed of the evidence, and then he went to work. Like nothing had happened. However, work, and I put that in quotes, was a family-owned auto dealership, and Butch had left at noon, which wasn't unusual. He often didn't come into work. It was completely sporadic. He came when he wanted. He left when he wanted. He and his father had a really rough relationship because Ronald Sr. was known to be an abusive, controlling man. Oh. He abused them all. They think it's a big part of why this even happened in the first place. And Butch had started using drugs and alcohol and escalating things. So then they were going toe to toe. Butch was being physical against his father in return. He actually pulled a gun on his father once before. The DeFeos started paying him a monthly stipend, whether he showed up to work or not, hoping it would help. Which, how would that help? He's just going to use it to buy his drugs. But, you know, you do what you can as parents, right? That day, before he ran into the bar to declare his parents shot, he met some friends at the bar after having ducked out of work early, sat there and drank with them. And what he did while he was there is he kept using the phone to call home. And then, loudly saying, nobody's answering. Why isn't anybody there? You know, there's so many people. How can nobody answer the phone? So then he goes home, and that's when he finds the bodies, and he runs back to Henry's bar. Of note, because I thought this was interesting, I'd never heard this detail before, the reason he involved the hitman appears to have been because his great-uncle, his father's uncle, was a capo regime in the Genovese crime family.
Oh my God.
Named Peter DeFeo. And I looked up, a capo regime is a rank in mafia families similar to captain. They're just below the underboss, so are important and have high social status, and they head a group of mafia soldiers.
Wow.
So you got the boss, the underboss, and your capo regime. But anyway, wasn't the hitman, didn't have anything to do with their mafia ties. DeFeo would later say he took credit for the killing, but that his mother had done all the killing. And he didn't want to speak ill of her because he was afraid his grandfather would punish him for speaking ill of his mother. He, of course, was the hero for having taken out his mother after she killed the rest of the family. His story changed a lot over the years.
You can't see the skeptical look on my face.
Yeah, here it goes. He went really hardcore on another member of the family. But after being convicted for all 6 murders on November 21st, 1975, he would fight the charge, try and get it dropped, all that, claiming he hadn't done it at all. His attorney tried to claim insanity in the initial trial, stating that Butch DeFeo heard voices and that his family was plotting against him. Now, some of them it's just evil voices speaking to him, telling him to kill his family. At one point, he thought that it was his family's voices he could hear plotting against him. He was diagnosed with, wait for it, antisocial personality disorder and found in possession of his faculties at the time of the crimes. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew right from wrong. They acknowledged that he was using LSD and all sorts of other hard-hitting drugs and heroin, but he knew right from wrong. I don't think you lie about it if you don't know right from wrong. You know? Like that right there. But one of the other stories he came forward with later was that his sister, 18-year-old Dawn, had committed the murders of the children and that Butch had killed her for doing so. He went back and forth on this, whether Dawn killed everybody or whether Dawn just killed the kids. So at one point he said they had schemed together to kill their parents so that they could escape their abuse, that they'd intended to drop the younger children off at their grandparents' house before the killings, but that Dawn had acted hastily and killed the children while Butch was out of the house conveniently in order to eliminate any witnesses. Once again, making himself the hero, he said he shot Dawn for what she'd done to the children. Conspiracy theorists have used the fact that she had unburned gunpowder on her nightgown to corroborate his story. But a ballistics expert has repeatedly said in court, on the shows that he's been interviewed on, that the placement of the unburned powder shows she was on the business end of a rifle, and that powder would have been expelled onto her nightgown when she was shot. The powder would not have gotten on her if she'd been the one firing the weapon. Also, his clothes were covered with blood. Hers had her blood on it. Also, if you're going to walk around killing everybody, why get into your nightgown first? That's my question. I didn't see that raised anywhere. But if they were scheming...
You want to be comfortable? I don't know.
I guess, but it seems inconvenient to walk around in a nightgown when you just have some pants on.
I would agree.
In other variations, he said that Dawn and a stranger broke into the house and killed their parents, then the children, that Allison, who was 13 at the time, had been shot in such a way that it ruined her face, and that this was out of jealousy by Dawn. It appears that Dawn did wake up long enough to lift her head just before being shot. That's why they think that that's the evidence she was awake. So the bullet kind of went astray and it damaged her face. But she was shot in the back, I think. In yet another version, Butch and Dawn got high with some friends in the basement and plotted the deaths, partially due to DeFeo Sr. refusing to let Dawn be with her boyfriend in Florida. Once again, the story had Dawn killing the children. He said he was chasing down one of his friends that they'd been getting high with, to get him to come back and help clean up the crime scene of killing the parents, and that when he returned, Dawn had killed the kids. There is, in fact, an affidavit from a William Davidge saying Dawn was using Butch for money, that she used mescaline and LSD like her brother, and that she had a short temper and was fighting a lot with her parents about moving to Florida to be with him because they were in love. Basically indicating that he did feel that she might have been a part of it. In 1990, Butch filed a 440 motion to vacate his conviction. He, of course, said it had been Dawn when he filed it. He also claimed to have been married to a woman named Geraldine Gates, that she had a brother named Richard Ramondo, and that this brother was with him when the murders were committed, and can prove that Butch had only killed Dawn, and that even that murder had been accidental, as he'd been trying to wrestle the rifle away from her after she killed everybody.
He shot her in the back accidentally.
In her bed.
In her bed.
At one point then, when called on that, he said, I made her get in the bed and then I shot her for it. And they're like, then you didn't do it while wrestling with her. And then, and except she was not one of the ones who appeared to have even been awake. Oh. But so anyway, there would later be all kinds of twists involving his marriage to Geraldine Gates. I decided not to go into it because it was such a rabbit hole. They were in fact married. She could prove it with ID at some point. But some of the evidence showed that they weren't married until after the murders, years after the murders, right before, and that conveniently it was right before he filed the 440.
Right.
But then there were also claims that they had a kid together, and she said that she backed that up. It was so messed up. But it was also found that she didn't have a brother named Richard Ramondo, that no such person existed. So that part had been made up. So this dude, he just lied his happy ass off, and apparently Geraldine took part in that. Oh, always and forever. Other odd facts revolving around this case are the fact that no neighbors heard gunshots. And this was a quiet place, but they weren't far. It wasn't a big property. It was winter, so their windows would have been closed. But multiple neighbors reported hearing the family's sheepdog Shaggy barking. Like, Shaggy woke them up, but they never heard gunshots. The police found no evidence of a suppressor of any kind. Butch didn't say he used a suppressor of any kind. Shaggy was tied to the inside of the kitchen door at that time, which they usually did at night since he wasn't fully housebroken yet. So he was probably barking his head off because there were gunshots in the house, right? But it's odd that nobody heard gunshots.
Yeah.
Then there's the fact that everyone died in their stomachs, including Mark, who was he was 12 at the time, and he had injured his back playing football and couldn't sleep on his stomach. In fact, his injury was severe enough that in the crime scene photos, there's a wheelchair next to his bed.
Oh my God.
But he is lying on his back and he is shot in the middle of his back.
Stomach.
He's lying on his stomach, yeah, he's shot in the middle of his back. There were no signs of struggle from anybody, except for the mom was kind of buried under a bunch of blankets, which is, they thought, I imagine that he would have shot the biggest threat first, which is usually how it works. So maybe she did have that moment where she woke up and then was shot next.
Wow.
So, yes, how is it that without a suppressor, he walked around a house and killed 6 people and nobody did more than lift their head up off the bed? Nobody woke up. I could see maybe Mark couldn't get out of bed on his own, but there was no, was in his photo, he's lying in such a way as like his head was on the pillow nicely. It's not like he was trying to inch over toward the wheelchair, but there were two girls in one room, two boys in one room. So they were shot in the same room.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And that's one of those enduring parts of this.
Right.
That made it such a big deal. Now, when asked about it, Butch said he drugged them. But when they did the autopsies, there were absolutely no signs of drugs. He said that he removed the organs. There was no sign in any of the organs that there were drugs. There was just, he felt no way that they were drugged. Which, again, still doesn't make sense. Like, them being drugged would make sense. So, no member of the household had anything in them. Now, including Dawn, even though there's an affidavit that says that she used drugs. I mean, no drugs.
Huh.
It's long been theorized that Butch didn't act alone, that there were other gunmen, but the evidence shows that a single weapon killed all of them. It was that single rifle. After the initial confession the day after the murder, he never again admitted to killing the children. He would maintain here and there that he had killed his parents, but he always denied after that first confession that he did not kill the children, that it was Dawn.
Huh.
Period. Dawn did it. Ultimately, Butch DeFeo was sentenced to 6 sentences of 25 years to life for 6 counts of second-degree murder on December 4th, 1975. His sentence was upheld despite his fights and his lies, and he died in Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, New York on March 12th, 2021. That's why I'm doing this.
What? He just died?
Yes. I had no idea. I didn't hear about it when he died, and then all of a sudden I saw something. Were he still alive? He had a parole hearing scheduled for this July.
How old was he when he died?
69 years old. So that means he outlived his parents by almost 2 decades, because they were both my age when he killed them. They were 43 years old. And I gave the ages of the other siblings. The youngest was 9. John was 9 years old when he was killed. His family are all buried in St. Charles Cemetery in Farmingdale, New York. I couldn't find his cause of death or where he was buried. It was too recent. They were just saying they were still looking into the cause of death, so I don't even know if he's buried yet. The house number was changed to 108 Ocean Avenue to keep tourists from showing up all the time, but that news got out quickly. Didn't make a difference. And I am going to talk about, in next episode, will be about the Amityville horror, the Amityville hauntings, and all of that good stuff, because it seemed like a good, hey, Butch is dead. Let's talk about Butch. But yeah, nobody ever really talks about the murder, so I wanted to.
No, I didn't. I probably knew, because I assume at some point I read the book.
Yeah, I know I read the book,
but I don't remember it. I've slept since then.
Yeah, well, and because there's all sorts of things, and we'll talk about that in the next episode. But there's just so much craziness around it, and the DeFeos got pulled into that craziness a lot. So. Yeah, so, all right, folks, we have a question this week that we'll be posting. We totally forgot to do it in the last 2 episodes. Sorry about that. It's a new thing, you know.
Yes,
we're nothing if not inconsistent.
We are consistent
in our inconsistencies.
That. So our question is, what is your favorite unsolved mystery?
Yes. We want to know. It might even cover it. But
yeah.
So we will be posting this on our Facebook page, and we went over all of that at the beginning, at the top of the show. However, if you've got stories that you want to share with us and have us read on the air, then send that to mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com, or use the forum on our website at www.mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com, and send us your stories. Make sure that they're not too long. If it's too long, we can't read it. If it's the same number of pages as what we read
for the story,
then it's too long. So just brief summaries, please. But we would love to hear your stories. We want to hear your stories about family issues, family conspiracies in the past, family blow-ups,
mysterious things that happened in towns where you've lived or towns where you grew up.
Oh, yeah. If you lived in a little town, there's got to be all kinds of fun stuff from that.
There always is.
Like, I actually, when I lived in McMinnville, was sitting at my grandma's house, and she had the paper and was looking through it, and that's how we found out my cousin had been arrested again. So that's small town living for you. We were actually in Amity, which was a neighboring rural town to rural McMinnville, and it was in the like Yamhill County paper or something like that.
Oh, yes.
So that's I know you got stories, peeps, if you lived in that type of place.
I miss small town newspapers. Man, you get the best stuff.
I'm not sure I miss it because I would have found that's how they knew every time my uncle got in trouble, every time my cousin got in trouble. There you go. But yes, we would love to hear from you.
Yes.
I think that's it.
I think it is. So we will see you. We won't see you. We will talk to you next week. You will.
Thank you for listening.
Yes. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.